This is being recorded so that everybody will have a chance then to, if something happens, if you have to leave partway through or you miss part of it, or you get cut out because your Wi-Fi cuts out, this will be recorded, and assuming that the recording works correctly, I will probably have it up on our website within another week or so. Edit it down a little bit, make it a little bit more user friendly, and then we will have, you'll be able to see it. Humera is saying that she's getting an echo. The reason I think that's happening for you is that I have you logged in here twice. So somehow you're on in two devices. Maybe you have a phone and a microphone and your computer or something like that. You're going to need to mute one of those, because I actually show you in here twice, which means you're logged in on two devices. And that's why you're getting an echo, is those two devices that are right next to each other are echoing a little bit. So that's going to be one of the issues. So if you're able to mute one of the devices, like I said, I don't know exactly how you're in, but it's possible you have a phone and you're also having your computer, and those two are echoing across from each other. That's where you're getting the echo. Everyone else seems like they should be okay. I just see one login. It happens every now and then. I don't know how people get logged in twice somehow, but it does happen on occasion. Anyway, just a little bit more housekeeping before we continue. Again, as I mentioned, I'm recording this. That'll go up on our website in the next week or so. So if you miss something, you'll have that opportunity. So you can try to close and log in again and see what happens. So again, and as you're seeing now, I am the only one that's running this webinar. So not only am I presenting the information, but I'm also actually serving as the host. So I am monitoring any of the technical difficulties that people are having. I will be monitoring the questions that people will have, or comments that people will have. I'm monitoring the chat windows as well. So if you hear me get quiet for a minute, it's probably because I'm reading some information that somebody's put up there or anything like that. So let's actually talk about how you're going to be interacting with this. I'm going to be presenting. You'll see, I'll be sharing my screen with you as you can see right now. We're going to be going onto the web and actually showing you some programs that you can use, some free programs that you can access on the web that will allow you to create these maps. While you're doing that, you will have the opportunity, however, to interact with me, not through your microphone or through your video chat. That's not how this one's going to work, because it gets really, really crazy. But you will be able to do text chatting with me. And the way to do that is somewhere on your screen, and I don't exactly know how yours is set up, but somewhere on the screen you should see a little chat bubble or something that says chat. That is one way that you can chat with me. The other option is you might have something that says Q&A. Which is another text box that you can enter in questions. They serve slightly different purposes, but for today's webinar, they're going to serve the exact same thing. If you have a comment or a question, you can go ahead and put it into either one of those boxes, and I will be answering it either right when you do it or sometime later in the program, but I will get through all of the questions. So just to make sure that everybody's hearing correctly and that you understand how the chat or the Q&A works, if you'll do me a favor and you'll just type into one of those boxes where you're listening from right now. So what city you are sitting in right now listening to this, so that I can see if everybody's using everything correctly. Okay, let's see. All right, we got a lot all over the place. Interestingly, we only have a couple from the Phoenix metro area, which is a little bit opposite of where we normally are. So we've got Tucson being represented, Sun City, Payson, Gilbert, Sierra Vista, Flagstaff. There's one from Phoenix. We even have somebody representing from New Mexico, Silver City, New Mexico. So we've got some coming from out of state as well. Good. So that's how you're going to be communicating with me. Looks like Scottsdale's participating as well. Whichever box you chose to chat into, that's how you can communicate with me. So if I ask a question later on, or if you have a question, you can certainly put your responses or your questions or comments into one of those boxes, and I'll be monitoring those throughout the presentation. We should be wrapped up by 11, if not a little bit before that. We are dealing with some technical things, so sometimes people like to have them repeated, and so I will do that as much as I can. Looks like Tempe is being represented as well. So if there is a technical thing that you want me to repeat, go ahead and feel free to say, hey, can you show that again, or anything like that. Again, this is being And you're also going to be given a PDF with all the steps that we go through, and I'm going to show you that PDF in a little bit. So if you forget something, there's going to be a step-by-step PDF that's going to provide you the information with this. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Just a quick little introduction that you are listening to a webinar being put on by the Arizona Game and Fish Department. If you are not responsible, if you're not familiar with who we are a state government agency that is responsible for managing all 800 and some odd species of wildlife that are found in Arizona. Even though we're a government agency, we are not funded in your typical way that you think of government agencies being funded. We don't take any general taxpayer dollars, so there's nothing from your sales tax and nothing from your income tax that comes to us. We operate much more on a business or a user pay model, so it is the users of the resource that are the ones that are paying for it. So that's where hunting and fishing licenses come in. When you buy a hunting or a fishing license, that money is coming directly back to the department for the management of those species. We also have other funding sources that are important to us. This program, which is what I oversee, which is our K-12 wildlife education program, which is called Focus Wild Arizona. It's entirely funded by the state lottery and what's called the Heritage Fund. Back in 1990, we're in the process of actually celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Heritage Fund, but it went to the ballot and the voters passed the Heritage Fund, and the goal of the Heritage Fund was to take a certain amount of money from the profits of the state lottery, for lack of a better term, the proceeds from the state lottery, and put them aside to conserve Arizona's heritage. So a portion of that money went to state parks to basically conserve more like the cultural and the natural resources, the heritage of Arizona, and a portion of that money went to the Game and Fish Department to preserve Arizona's wildlife heritage. So we use a lot of that money to help with some of our endangered species and some of our non-hunted species. So a lot of our bald eagle work, black-footed ferrets, Mexican gray wolves, a lot of that is funded through the state lottery, including, as I mentioned, the education program that you are listening to right now, or that you might experience through any of our different avenues, workshops, lesson plans that we provide. All of that is funded from the state lottery. We do have other ways. If you're not a hunter and angler and you don't play the lottery, there are other ways that you can help us. If you're interested in wildlife, we actually have a conservation membership plan. So there's two different levels for $30 and $100. You can actually contribute money to the Game and Fish Department. With that, you get a magazine subscription. You get some other benefits that come along with it. But that money goes directly, again, towards the on-the-ground management of wildlife in Arizona. My name is Eric Proctor. I am the Wildlife Education Coordinator. I've been in that position now for 15 years. And in that role, I work behind the scenes with you guys as educators. So I don't go into classrooms a lot. I don't give a lot of classroom presentations. I do on occasion. But most of what I do is working with you and providing support with you as either classroom educators or non-formal educators, helping you bring wildlife issues and wildlife concepts into the classroom. So I do teacher professional development, I do curriculum development, resource development, all those different types of things. I am a former middle school science teacher, primarily science. I taught 7th grade science in both the Littleton School District over in Avondale and in the Kyrene School District in Chandler. I've also done a little bit of social studies and language arts teaching. I've also been involved in a lot of other non-formal science education venues as well. I've worked at the Phoenix Zoo as an outreach instructor. I've been down at the Arizona Sonoran Desert Museum down in Tucson as a docent. I have been involved with the Challenger Space Center as a flight director. So all different types of ways that I've been involved in science education for more than 20 years here in Arizona. That's me. We've talked about, again, how you're going to be interacting a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started with the main content. And as I mentioned when you registered, this is kind of an introductory workshop. We're not going to go into a ton of detail. And we're not going to do anything super advanced. It's just to get you started in thinking. What you're going to realize, we're going to be working with GIS, or what's called Geographic Information Systems. And if you're not familiar with that, we've got sort of a description and an image there that I'm going to explain in just a little bit. But this can be very, very complicated. It's an extremely powerful tool that we're going to be using, and it can get very, very complicated. It's think of it like Photoshop, right? You can have a program like Photoshop and you can download it and you can do some basic photo editing with it. But as you start to delve into what Photoshop's capable of, you start to realize the true power of the photo editing that comes out of a program like Photoshop. Well, GIS and the software that we're going to be using, ArcGIS online, has that same capacity. There's some very basic level stuff that we're going to introduce you to today, but as you start to delve into it, it can get far more complex, and you can go into tons of trainings and things like that. Our goal today is just to get it to the point where you have some existing data. I'm going to show you where to find some existing data specifically within the program. How do you make a map? And how do you make it interactive so that you can put it online and your students can interact with it, and you can start to showcase and start to tell stories with some of the maps that you're doing? That's the goal of today. We're only here for an hour, and that's what we're going to be covering. So let's talk briefly about geographic information systems. A geographic information system, or what we abbreviate as GIS, is a system designed to capture, store, manipulate, analyze, manage, and present spatial or geographic data. So basically anything that you can plot on the surface of the Earth is what we would call GIS. Now, what's cool about GIS is the layering capacity that it has. So gone are the days where all we're doing is putting a point on the map. Digital maps and the internet, and through GIS technology, give us the ability to embed information within that single dot that you put on the map. So we're not talking about paper maps here where you've drawn a line of border, or you've drawn the continent or anything like that. We are talking about taking a point on Earth and then embedding a whole bunch of information onto that single point. And you can see here on the image that's on the left-hand side, we do this through a series of layers. And so and you can stack these layers on top of each other, which give you a better picture of the overall system that you're trying to study and analyze. For teachers, the biggest analogy I like to use, if you've been teaching for a while, and you think about the overheads that you used to have, those little clear, transparent overheads that you turn the little machine on and you put the little clear piece of paper on them, you could write on, but then you could also lay another transparency on top of it because they were transparent and you could see through, and you could put stuff on it. Or if you used to have those old books in school that were like of the human body, and you could lift up a page and the skin would the skin image would come off, and underneath you'd see the muscle system, and then you'd pull the muscle system off and you'd see the skeletal system, and you'd pull the skeletal system off and you might see the reproductive system, or the respiratory system, or the circulatory system, and all those papers were clear and transparent, and they were on top of each other, and you could layer them off. That's what GIS does, but it does it in a digital format, and it does it for mapping. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So if you're not familiar with GIS, I can guarantee you've interacted with it already. If you've ever done anything with Google Earth or Google Maps or Apple Maps, that is all GIS based. If you've gone to your county assessor's website to see your property taxes, and you have to put in an address and it shows you your house and says that this is what you owe, you've interacted with GIS. If you've ever watched election coverage on TV, and I give an example right there down below of the 2008 election, just a single map that was provided. This would be like in a newspaper or on a website. And you can see all the stuff where they do the red and the blue, and who voted for what, and they can get all the results and all that stuff. All that is done through GIS capacity. I remember watching CNN one time, I think, and you had the guy there that was, and he could zoom in and he could push us one of these specific counties, and it would zoom in and it would get to a specific district, or it would get down to the street level, and they could tell you at street level who was voting for who in the different elections, and it was fascinating. It's largely considered from when you look at some of the historians from this 2008 election, which was the big one that Barack Obama kind of came out of nowhere and won. They are crediting a lot of what he did to his understanding of GIS and his campaign's understanding of GIS, and how they were basically able to get down to a house level of what houses they should focus on for support, and who was like direction, or who could they push to get out to vote and things like that. They could do that on a house level. So gone in these political campaigns of these people just wandering the streets and going door to door and asking for support, they can get down and know exactly which, based on information that's publicly available, where they should be focusing their efforts. And it was largely considered this 2008 election was really one of the ones to really revolutionize how we're using GIS technology. I'm going to show you an example of one that we use at the department called Habamap. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen here a little bit and bring up, this is software that you can actually access from our website. I'm not sure how much longer it's going to be used because it actually uses Flash. And if you're not familiar, Flash is going away, or if we're in the process of changing it over a little bit. I'm just presenting this as an example of what GIS is, so you can see how it works and the potential of what you can be doing when you create these maps. So this is a map of Arizona, and over here on the left-hand side are my layers. These are layers that are built into the map. This is what you will have the capacity to do in about 5 or 10 minutes here. We're going to show you how to build layers like this from existing data. And then your students, once you publish this map, will have the ability to do exactly what we're doing, which is turning on and off these layers. So let me give you some understanding here. So right now you're seeing a map of Arizona. It's actually an entirely interactive. I could move this map all around. It is not just of Arizona. However, the data we're going to be dealing with is Arizona, and so if you were to click, you're only going to see Arizona. So we're going to keep Arizona in the main screen here. But it's an active map that I can scroll around. And then on the left hand side, where, like I said, where it says layers here, these are layers that are already embedded into the map. They exist. The data is already there. You just can't see it yet. So in order to see it, you have to turn the layers on and off. And that's what these little check boxes are next to the layers. So you can see there are dozens of layers, right? There are probably 20 or more layers in here that you can turn on and off. So let's say, so I have my map of Arizona. I'm going to give you an example here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and find land ownership. Okay, I'm interested in land ownership. I'm going to click on land ownership. When I do that, what's happening is that the map is loading, and all of a sudden that layer pops up. Okay, so now this is a map of land ownership in Arizona. Now, if I'm interested in what that means, I can click again on my layers box over here, click on the little plus symbol, and now it tells me, it gives me my legend or my key. So it shows me what these different colors mean. So these orange colors, those are the reservation lands. This yellowish green color is sort of the Forest Service. The blue is the state trust land. Purple is National Park Service. So there's the Grand Canyon right up there. So you have all these different things. Now, if I want to turn out, so what's cool about this particular layer is there are sub layers below it. So the land ownership map is turned on, and so are all these other layers. But let's say I wasn't interested. I didn't want to see all these layers. I wanted to isolate 1 or 2 of them. I could turn them off. So let's say I turn off state trust land. So I can click that and turn it off. The layer still remains active, but you'll notice all those blue little squares that were representing state trust land have just disappeared from my map. They still exist. I can still go back here and click on it and they will return, but I've taken them out. Okay. So if I just want to focus on a particular type of land ownership, I can do that. So that's one example of a layer. There are other layers in here if you were interested in here, the scrolling is biotic community. So you want to look at the different vegetation levels of Arizona. Here is a vegetation map. So again, if I come over here, click on the plus button, I can see what those different colors mean. Now, this one is not quite the same level. I cannot, because of the data that's available, this is not my data. So I have to go with how the data was put into the system. They don't have it where I can turn on and off the layers. They just have this single layer that's the brown and low map, but it can tell me where the alpine tundra is and so on. I can go through all of this and figure out. If I was to click on an area of this map, it would also tell me. So this is telling me, because this is the active layer, my biotic communities layer is active, it's telling me that this point that I clicked on right here is Arizona Upland Subdivision Sonoran Desert Scrub. If I go up here, now it's telling me I'm talking about Great Basin Desert Scrub. So I can click on information on the map once the layers are active. Now, if you have more than one layer open, so let's go here and I'll do, I'll shut down this window a little bit. I'll keep biotic communities open, and we'll do land ownership as well. Now you'll see it didn't appear right away. If I click on it, watch the map as I click on it off, it's appearing, but it's underneath. The reason for that, the way this GIS, these layers work, is the layers that are on top of each other are going to show on top of each other on the map. Okay, so think of it hierarchical. The lower down in this menu, the lower they are on the map. And so the biotic communities one is on top of the land ownership one. So it's hard to see. What I can do in this particular tool, though, is I can change the transparency. See where it says biotic communities? If I click on the biotic community so that it's now highlighted, I have this thing here that says layer visibility. I can actually change this and lower the visibility so you can see the other map. If I bring it down to 0, the layer's still active, you just can't see it. So I can shift this around a little bit, and I can make it more middle of the road if you wanted to. Now, when I have 2 layers open like this and I click on a point, it's only going to tell me Great Basin Desert because that's the layer that I have highlighted. If I was to go down here and click on land ownership, I'm pretty sure now if I click, it's going to tell me because that's the layer that's on top. If I click on Biotic Communities and now I click here, oh, that layer doesn't have data behind it. That must be why. Some don't have the ability to, they're not clickable layers. So it just kind of depends on the layer you're working with. And that's what you'll learn as you're going through here. So this is an example of what GIS is. All right, this is just one example that the Game and Fish Department has put together. What we're going to focus on now is how do you make something similar to this? Okay, so Maya, you actually asked, can you do this with other states? And the question is yes and no. This specific Habamap was only developed for Arizona. This was actually developed for the Arizona Game and Fish Department. However, what we're going to be able to do is show you how you can do this, do something similar, and you can find a lot of these layers, maybe not all of them, but you can find a lot of these layers and create a map similar for your particular state. And then Suzanne is asking, do we need a username or password access, or is it open to everyone? This particular map is open to everyone. If you just go to haveamap.org, it'll bring it in there and it'll bring it up. It's free. It's available to everyone on this particular map. To create the maps that we're going to show you, and let's go ahead and do that right now. Let me flip over here real fast. Let me go back here and make sure that we're on top. What we're going to do is you are going to be creating an account on something called ArcGIS Online. Now, it is a free account, okay? And ArcGIS is created by a company called Esri, which sounds something like educational subservices resource. I don't understand I don't remember what Esri stands for, but they are one of the leading companies that deals with GIS. Them and Google probably are 2 of the leading people in the development of GIS technology. And they have a free account. You just go to arcgis.com. I'll show you that in a minute. And you can create an account. As long as you have an email address, you create an account and you can go in here and you can create maps. You can add layers and you can create maps. However, the free account does not include analysis tools. Now, what that means is for a lot of what you're going to be doing, you won't need those analysis tools. For the vast majority of maps that I make, I don't need analysis tools. However, they are a nice feature. To get the analysis tools, you have to have an organizational account. Now, the organizational accounts usually cost money. Game and Fish, for example, has an organizational account. It's a ton of money, but it's an extremely powerful tool. All right. It has everything that you can do in the personal account, plus a bunch more, including these analysis tools. Now, the analysis tools say, like, if you have a layer up there and you want to do a density map of that layer, or you want to determine how far away something is from a particular point on that map, things like that, some of those analysis tools that are a little bit higher level, that's what comes in an organizational account. The good news is that Esri, for years now, this is not something that's just new as a result of our current conditions. This has been for a couple years now. They offer their organizational account absolutely free to schools. We're talking, this is a multi-$100 software package, and then they give a bunch of bonuses to schools. They actually have their credit system where organizations have credits, which every time you do an analysis or something, it costs credits. Those are absolutely unlimited within the school account. Now, so I show you there's a short link that I put together on how to get the school account. You have to fill out there's a quick little online form that you fill out. My suggestion is you have like your tech person or whatever, because it's going to be a school-based account. Make sure that you have it through your school. So your principal, your tech person at your district or whatever works to establish it, because then they can work with them on making sure if there's going to be any network issues or anything like that. But you can absolutely get the more powerful tool for free, which allows you to create student groups and all kinds of different stuff. And they have all kinds of help on creating student groups, so you can create classes so all your students can interact within your organizational account. But what we're going to do is interact with just a free personal account today. I'm going to show you what you could do today. If you just log in as soon as you're done here and you want to create an account and you want to start creating maps, we're going to show you how to do that. Okay, so let's do that. Right now, I'm going to go to ArcGIS, and I have open right now this is my personal account. So it says Eric Proctor up here in the corner. If you go to arcgis.com, it's going to have an option for you to sign in or to create an account or something like that. You go ahead and you create the account. Once you do that, this is kind of what it's going to look like. You log in and you have this different option here. I'll show you an organizational account as well. So I also have open my organizational account. So this is the Game and Fish organizational account. I'll go to the home page so you can see how it's different. Up on the top, it says that I'm logged in as the education branch within my organization. You have some branding opportunities that you can do within the organizational account and things like that. But basically, they are the same. It just looks the personal account, which I have up now, is just a little bit more generic. You don't have as much personalization that you do, but it is all your account. Now, what's cool about this account is it exists on the cloud. You can access it anywhere because you logged in on the internet, but it serves almost like a cloud drive as well. So you can actually save files to this and things like that. So if you have your students working within your school account, they can actually save files. You can put tips on there and all sorts of different things as well. I'm going to show you how to go. So once you've created an account, you get to this page. Now you've got these options up here. They can tell you like pricing, but the one that you're going to be most interested in is this one that says map. I go to map. And now what it's going to do is it's going to bring up a very basic map. All right, so now this is a map of the world. And again, all I've done is created a free account and logged in, nothing else. Okay. And I can tell you that Esri doesn't reach out to me, that they're not looking to like upgrade me or do anything like that. It's you know, they're not sending me spam, things like that. It's all here. Now this is completely movable map. All right, it's a live map. I can move to anywhere in the world. I can zoom in and zoom out. It's completely movable. The first thing you're going to want to do probably is you're going to change the base map. The base map is this basic map that people are seeing. So over here on the top, you'll see there's a couple different menus. There's these three over here underneath where it says My Map, that says Details, Add, and Base Map. And then over here in the middle of the bar, there's where you have Save, Share, Print, Measure. There's some different things in here. If you had the organizational account, you would notice there'd be one more thing over here that would be Analysis. In fact, let's look at that. I'm going to go back to my organizational account and bring up Map. And you will see that the only difference, I don't know, because it has analysis over here. So this is my organizational account. The base map is a little different. I'll show you how we change that. It has a few more things on here, like a directions option, and then it has analysis, which is not present here. Notice I don't have directions and I don't have the analysis button. That's over here. Okay. So if I'm interested in finding a place, so if I want to put in up here in the search bar and I want to put in Grand Canyon, and I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, sure, let's go to that suggested one right there. It zooms me right there. So this is an interactive map, just like you would be using on Google Earth or Apple Maps or any of those options. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom out of here now and not worry about the Grand Canyon. What we're going to do now is we're going to change the base map. You notice that there's two different maps. This map looks a little bit different than the one that I'm using on my personal account. Some of it is the scale at which I'm zoomed in or out. But I can go over here now to do base map. This is the map that I'm looking at when I first log in. And you can see there's all kinds of options I have for my base map. Let's say I'm interested in doing, right now it's some kind of modified topographical map of some kind, but I have all different types of options. Let's say I want to do an imagery map. So this would be like a satellite image. I've now changed the base map that I'm looking at. So depending on the need of your particular map, I'm going to do imagery hybrid, which is kind of a combination. It starts to show some labels that are in there. I like this National Geographic one, which is kind of cool. It's kind of simple. It's kind of clean. There's some other ones. I mean, all different types of ones that you have options to look at. If you want to look at a human dark, it makes it dark. So depending on what you're looking at, this is almost like a night one. But I'm just going to keep it simple for right now. I'm just going to do this National Geographic map. Because it's clean, it's simple, and so on. All right, so I've got that map. Actually, maybe I might get something even simpler than that. I'm just going to do this light gray because I don't want the base map to interfere with all the other layers that I'm going to be introducing. So Suzanne asked, where's the key for the colors on the National Geographic map you're using? So that's an interesting question. When you're using a base map, you have to understand that that's not the map that they're going to be interacting. That's not the one that has all the data on it. So you'd have to explore around a little bit to get to the key to that. This is just what you're putting as your baseline. So all the rest of the maps you're going to be building are going to be on top of that. That's why I like to keep it pretty simple. A gray map like this or anything like that. I wouldn't worry so much about the colors on that National Geographic map, or if you have a problem with it, don't use that map. Just pick something simple. But again, I'm looking for something that's not going to interfere with the data that I'm going to be placing on here. So now I've got a base map. So this is setting the scene, right? I've laid this foundation of my map down, and now I'm going to start adding some information. So now we want to add layers. So we come up over here to this add section. So over here in my upper left-hand corner, I've got details, add, and base map. I'm going to go to add. When I click on add, it's going to give me a drop down of some different things. We're not going to talk about all of these right now. Some of these are going to appear, actually 2 of these are probably going to appear in my later webinar this afternoon at 2, which is creating from your own data. But for us, we're just looking at existing data layers. So what we're going to do is do this one that says search for layers. We want to search for existing layers. Now, when I do that, it's going to bring up this search bar over here on the left-hand side. Now, the thing you need to be aware of is right now it's searching in my content. So these are things that I've created. I mentioned at the beginning, when I create this account, it serves like its own cloud drive. Everything that I create, any files that I upload, get added to my drive. That's under my content. I don't want to look in my content because I haven't created this map yet. What I want to do is look out in the world. So I'm going to go here and click on my content, and it gives me all these different options. I'm going to choose ArcGIS Online because that's the software we're using. I click on ArcGIS Online. This all the different layers that have been put up there, and you can see there are 10,000 layers or more that have been added into here that I can search for. Now, I'm going to search for a couple different layers. What you do is you just do a text search. What I'm going to be providing to you in a follow-up email is this document here. What I've done is I've gone through and I've collected a variety of what I think probably potentially useful data layers. So what you would do is, let's say you're interested, I want to add a latitude and longitude to my map. So right here, there's a data layer for world latitude and longitude. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. So notice the data layer is called World Latitude and Longitude Grids, and the publisher is Esri. So I'm going to go over here back to my map. I had it up there. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste in the name that I was looking for, World Latitude and Longitude Grids. And if I hit return, you'll notice there it popped up, and see it says by Esri. That's the layer that I'm looking for. There are other layers that popped up, and they tell me who was the author of them. This is where you can start thinking about what is quality data. Anything by Esri is probably going to be pretty good because that's the company that makes these maps. If you're finding ones by some of the government agencies, those are probably going to be pretty good. Some of these that are just individual people, they may not be as good because that literally may just be somebody who did it for a school project and created a layer. You'd have to go in. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about this layer, you can actually click on the layer, and it tells you all sorts of information. It tells you that it was written by Esri, when it was last updated. It gives you some information, all kinds of, it describes the information, gives you all this information. Some of these aren't going to give you the same amount of information. I don't know who this person is, so I'd have to look, and I could click on this person and learn a little bit about what they've already published and stuff like that. But I've got this world latitude and longitude grid. What I want to do is, I'm interested in using it. This is the layer I'm interested in. I can either add the map here, or I can add this little plus button right here. So when I add it, now it's going to be now the grid appeared on my map. That's all it took. So depending on how far out I'm zoomed in is what's going to show me what my latitude and longitude is. So as I go into the map a little bit sooner, it's going to get into a finer level of detail on my latitude and longitude. So I just put that in as a basic layer. Now, if I go back here to my main thing, now I've got this menu here that says details is highlighted. All right. So if I go to content under so I'm on details and I go to content, this shows me the layers I've created. Now, I only added 1 layer in, but notice it added 5 layers. The reason for that is because they have the layers at different scales. So right now, this one that's at a 5-degree grid is the one that's active. If I scroll out, notice the 10-degree one is what became active. And now the 15-degree one became active. And the 30-degree one will become active if I zoom all the way out. So this adding the single layer actually added a series of sublayers. If I want to turn on or off any of these layers, I just click, just like I did before on that HABA map that I showed you. I can click these arrows and turn them on or off. But let's go ahead and add another layer. So I'm going to go over here and add, go to search for layers. I make sure it says ArcGIS Online because that's the one I'm interested in. And let's go find something else. Let's find something cool here. How about the 100 most prominent peaks in Arizona? I'm going to go ahead and copy this because I'm interested in mapping the 100 most prominent peaks in Arizona. Let's go back to our map. That's what I'm going to search for. And I hit search. And hopefully, look, there it comes up. That was the author of it. So if I hit add, it zooms me in, and it automatically added that data to it. Right, so notice both my layers are still here. My latitude and longitude are there, but so are these layers, this layer that has the 100 most prominent peaks in Arizona. So if I click on it, it'll give me an information. This tells me this is O'Leary Peak, gives me all kinds of information about that content. And you're right, this one is not Esri. I'm confident enough because this is done by the U of A GIS department. It's somebody at the U of A GIS department, but this is a person who's made this layer publicly available for me to add. So it doesn't have to be Esri. It's just that when I'm looking, I look at that author just to make sure that I feel it's a credible source. Now that's going to be up to each individual person. And when you're talking to your students or when you're doing this, it's going to be similar to when you do website analysis, right? Is this website from a credible source? The same thing is going to be here. I'm going to look at who it's from. Sometimes I can look at that metadata. If I click in here, it's going to give me information, hopefully, if they put in there, but it's going to tell me a little bit about it. So I know something about the layer before I add it in. It's not just some student's homework assignment that they did. So good question, though. So I can click on any of these peaks and it's going to tell me that's Mount Perkins, gives me the information, gives all this information. All this is on that single point. This is the power of GIS, right? All I've done is plotted points, but each point now has a ton of information stored with it. And there's all kinds of analyses you can do. If you have the analysis option under your organizational account, that's the data that you can start analyzing. You could potentially take this data now and do map just peaks that are above 8,000 feet. And then you could eliminate all the other data points. There's all these different things that you could do with the analysis tools that you can't do if you just have the basic level. So that's a data point that I've added. Let's go ahead and add one more point. Now, let's say I didn't have this information, so I'm going to add search for layers. And I've been using data layers that I already found, but let's say I'm just interested in something else. I just do a word. I'm going to say rainfall. I have no idea what this is going to come up with, but I'm just doing a search and I'm going to see what comes up with rainfall. Does a keyword search, and you can see in here it shows me all different types of stuff. Rainfall depth surfaces for New Zealand. Well, since I'm mapping Arizona, I'm probably not interested in New Zealand. This one is from Hawaii State GIS, probably a reliable source, but it's probably going to just be focused on Hawaii. So you can go through these and look at all different types of things in here. But so any search term you put in there, you could put in wildfires. I don't know what's going to pop up on some of these. You'll see a wildfire hazard potential. I think that might be one of my. Let's go ahead and add that. Well, let's look at it. Wildfire hazard potential. This map layer portrays the wildfire hazard potential developed by U.S. Forest Service fire modeling. The map layer portrays tells you some information about it. So if I was to add that to my map, just like that, I've got a wildfire hazard potential. Now, what do all those colors mean? Let's go back here. So far I've been in add. I'm going to go back to details. Now details is where the content is. And you'll notice my 100 prominent peaks is there. Wildfire hazard potential is here. And then my latitude and longitude are over here. So the 100 most prominent peaks is on top of everything else so that it's going to appear on the top. If I wanted to change the order of these, let's say I want to put wildfire hazard potential on top of everything else, I just go over here till it's highlighted. I bring up the little cursor and I can drag it to the top. Or pretty close to the top. It may not let me. It'll tell you some layers can't move. They're put in a certain spot, and so there is issues there. I wonder if this one will allow me to move. Yep. So this one I could move below there, or this one I could move below here, and I can change where that layer appears. Some of them don't move. It's just something. So that's the content. Those are the layers that I have in existence. If I go to my legend now, this will tell me what the colors mean now, and every layer that I have active is going to appear in my legend. So since I have the 100 most prominent peaks and my world latitude and longitude and the wildfire fire hazard potential all active, they all appear on my legend. If I was to remove 100 most prominent peaks. Notice it's still in my map. It still exists. I didn't delete the file. It's there. It's just not appearing on my map anymore. But if I go over here to legend, it doesn't appear in the legend anymore. Right. So now I know that all these dark green areas, that's a very low wildfire hazard. The red ones are very high. That seems to make sense. And so on. So all this information. And all I did was find freely available data. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put my peaks back in, and you can see that they're in there. So I've created a map with 3 simple layers that I found just by doing a general search on the freely available data within ArcGIS. Now, Suzanne is asking another question, will it identify these points without the analysis option? So yes, if I click on here, all this information comes up with the analysis. Without the analysis, I don't have the analysis option. I'm in my free account. So all this is data that's available to you. What the analysis does is it allows you to do a little bit more powerful stuff with the data that's already embedded into the map. So you could do a density map, for example. I could create a density map of where the peaks are, and it could tell me, it could do a density analysis of that layer, the 100 most prominent peaks, and it could create a color-coded pattern of where is the densest areas in the state where the mountains are found using that data. I can't do a density analysis in my free account, but I could in my organizational account. So there's a few differences there, but everything that you're seeing here is done just through the free account that I created. And like I said, there are thousands of layers available to you. You're going to have to use some discretion on what you create. But once you've done it and you're happy with it, all right, let's say I'm happy with these particular maps, that's fine. Now I'm going to save it. So I click over here. I'm here on save. I go to save as. I'm going to enter a title for it. I'm just going to do this as webinar test. It does have a few things it requires you to do. It does always want you to have a tag. A tag is words that you can use to help find it later. So they're keywords that you can put in that'll help you find it later, or that other people might be able to find if you choose to make your map public. You don't have to make it public, but obviously if you want people to interact with it, you would need. For me, I often just use my last name as one of my tags so that I can always search for my last name. You could put a description if you want. Any of this information that you put in here is what's going to appear in that information that people can click on. I'm not going to put a description right now. All I'm going to do is save the map. Okay, now I've got it saved. It actually appears in my content. So if I go back over here, so I'm going to show you there's another menu here. We've been talking about saving in this area here, and we've been using the base map and add. Right above here in the upper left-hand corner, this is sort of my main menu. So all those things that I saw before, my home, all that stuff is in here. If I go to content, again, this is all the stuff that I've created. Okay, and there is the new map I just created called Webinar Test. I have a lot of different demos in here that I've been doing different stuff on. So there's the Webinar Test. When I click on that, this is like a file drive, right? So it shows me there's a picture of it. This is any information that I've included. You notice I didn't include a description so it doesn't appear. It tells me what's in the map, all this different stuff. Now I can do Open in Map Viewer, and what it's going to do theoretically is bring up the map that I was working on. So even if I wanted to modify it later, or I wanted to bring it up later, so it's loading up all the files. Now I can work on this map some more if I wanted to add layers or delete layers or so on. Well, let's say I'm ready to share it. I go up here to share, which is right next to save. And I have a couple different options for sharing it. Yours might look different, especially with an organizational account. So my options right now is I can share it with everyone, which means it becomes public. It gets put out on the web and anybody could find it if they knew what they were looking for. Or I could, if I had groups, what I've done is I've actually created groups when I've done other trainings, longer trainings, and you can share it within that group. With an organizational account, you'll have a lot more flexibility because you can share it just with your organization, you can share it with everyone, and so on. Right now, I'm just going to make it public so that everyone can see it. I've done that, and now what it does is it tells me I'm done. This is the link that I would share with people if I wanted to. I could also embed it in a website, so I could put it onto an existing website, and I hit done. Now let's take a look at what the public sees. I go here, I'm doing that link that I just shared out. So this is actually showing because I'm logged into ArcGIS. It's not going to show me the public version, so I'll do that. I'm going to log out in just a minute, and then I'll show you what the public would see with that. So let me go ahead and let me actually log out here. Pull this one off. Let me sign out of my account. Let's go ahead and close this one down. Now I'm going to try this again and see what happens. It may still bring up from my organizational account that's logged in. Nope. So now it has all this information. So this is what they're seeing. It tells me they could sign in if they want to. It might look a little different when you are looking at it because you probably doesn't have modify map on yours. But now if I go to content, now I have those layers. So I'm in here. I'm not logged in. This is freely accessible. I can turn off those layers. So now I have the opportunity for students to do this. I can share that link with them, that you can build a bunch of layers into there that you want them to start looking at, and they can start doing that. So there's that layer. I can turn off the latitude and longitude if I want to, and I can even turn off the wildfire hazard potential if I wanted to. So all of these layers are completely manageable within this free example that I did. So good. So that is the basic premise behind a lot of the stuff. So I'm going to go through and make sure I've answered some questions. If you have some additional questions, you want me to show you something again, feel free to do that. We'll show you, I'll show you a couple more things in just a minute, but if you have any specifics about this before we start to move on to some of the other, we're going to be wrapping up soon, but wanted to give you a basic understanding here. So can you share a map you created with others? We just hopefully did that a little bit, gave you a little bit of an idea of what that could look like. You get that link and you can share that map. You can embed it onto a website. So could a teacher ask students to submit a created map to the teacher to check their skills in using the tool? Absolutely. Now, how you do that is going to be up to you. We have another question that says, with an organizational account, would students be able to create maps together remotely? So I put those two questions together. If you have an organizational account, you're going to get a lot more flexibility with what you can do with the students, because you can actually create the student accounts underneath your organizational account, which gives you a lot more control if you wanted to. And then you could actually assign them into groups. I don't know as much about that because I don't have a classroom, but I know Esri has some tools to help you with that. But you can actually create the student accounts under your organizational account, which gives you some content, and then they don't necessarily have to share their emails. You just give them the login information. They log in, they can do that. Now, to create the maps together remotely, they would have to have the same login. You are creating the login. I believe you are creating the login for one. So you could potentially create logins for your groups, right? So a group of students could work, and then they could work on it remote. Then they could work on it remotely. All they have to do is get on the website. They can log into the account. They can modify their map. Another kid could come in and modify the map, and so on. There might be ways. I forget exactly what within the organizational. I think there might be ways where somebody could create the map, and then just like in Google, you can create permissions for different access for that. So you can make people be like where they can change data and things like that. But I'm not as familiar with that. That would really require you to get in a little bit more. But yes, you can allow people to get in and they can access it remotely. So for you as a teacher, then, could you have students create this? And the answer is yes, but it's going to depend on how you're comfortable doing that. If you have the organizational account, you can create the accounts for the kids, and then they don't have to do anything with their email or anything like that. The other option, if you don't have the organizational account, or if you're not going to go through that effort right now to create to get the free one that Esri is going to provide to you, you could have the kid or their parents create a free account, just like here. They would go to arcgis.com, they would create a free account, and then they can do it. And then all they would do is email you the link, and then you could look at it. So yes, you can have students do this and submit them, and then you could judge it, and you could see how well they're using the tool or what they're choosing to use it for. So that's that tool. Let me, that was the basics on adding existing data. Now, there are some other things you could do. This gets a little bit trickier, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but there is other data out there. If you were to open up Google and you were just to say, for example, Arizona GIS data, right? And I want to see what publicly available. Most government agencies have GIS data that's publicly available. There isn't, so you could go to the Arizona Geographic Information Council, geospatial data collections and resources from the same places. So in here now, if I've just clicked on the first one that popped up, I don't know exactly what I'm going to find, but there's an opportunity to find data. You can find it by certain things, but if I want to go in here and say, I want to find data specifically, now I go into here, it's going to give me all kinds of data. It seems searchable. So maybe I want to do by a layer. Remember, we have a layer. And it's going to tell me all different types of layer. Now, this is random. I have no idea what's in here, but these are all layers that are publicly available. If I was to go into this one that says post-World War II areas that came from the city of Tempe, I could click on it. It's going to give me some information, and then this is where I could get the data. And it actually shows me the data. There's the actual data table. And then over here on this side is where it says download. And I could download as a spreadsheet or as a shapefile. Shapefile is the layer that's already been created. When you download that, then your only other option then is, I'm going to sign in real fast. Sign into that one though. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and sign in on my organizational account just for purposes here that you can see. If I have a map under add, this is where I can then do, we were searching for layers. You could add a map from a file. So that's where if you were to download this file to your computer, one of these computer things, then you could do over here, add a map from a file, and it would upload it in, upload that data that somebody else has created into your file as well. That one's going to be a little trickier because it's going to require you to do a little tweaking of the data, the layer, which we're not going to talk. We're not going to spend a lot of time. I'll spend some time talking about it in my next webinar too, but you're going to have to do some of the symbology. So you're going to have to assign colors and things like that. It gets a little bit trickier. It's not as easy as just adding a layer that somebody else has created into your thing. So Suzanne asked, what about species maps? Are those available we can look for? Absolutely. What you would do is just go here to search. It's going to depend on the data that's available, right? You're depending on other people's layers. Again, I'm in my content, so I want to go to ArcGIS. You could search for just species and see what happens. And you'll see there's species richness is included in here. There's some different stuff. But I suppose if you were looking for a specific species, like let's say I'm interested in the jaguar in Arizona, for example, there's something here that says endangered species jaguar that's available from the federal user community. That's a pretty reliable source. I don't know what this is. I'd have to click on it and see. Data depicts areas where the jaguar is known to or is believed to occur. So let's go say I add that to my layer right here, my map. I don't know what that just did. Let's find out. Oh, it looks like it added this point down here. Sorry, I'm having to move some of my chat windows out of the way. I added this spot down here, this brown area. If I go over here to details and my content or my legend, it shows me endangered species jaguar is this area right down here. I know that because if I turn off the layer, notice that that area turns off. So this is showing me species, the jaguar potential locations in Arizona. Which is really where Arizona, New Mexico, which is where they're kind of found right now. So good. What I want to do, we only got about 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we've covered a bunch of stuff. Again, the purpose was just to provide a very quick introduction on how you can make a map. Hopefully you saw how easy it was just to start adding layers. You can get lost in searching for layers. The key part there, like I said, is to make sure you are comfortable with the site, with the author of that data, right? Is it a government agency? Is it Esri? Is it whatever it happens to be? And you can, like I said, you can search for anything you want. A good place to start, however, will be this useful data layers PDF that I'm going to provide to you in a follow-up email. So when we're done here, you're going to log out. There's going to be a survey that you can answer, and then you're going to get an automated email in about an hour or so. That automated email is just going to be a, hey, thank you for attending, yada, yada, yada. Then probably by tomorrow, I'm going to have a more detailed email that's going to come directly from me to all the people that attended this webinar. On it are going to be 2 attachments. There's going to be this data layer file. So this is going to be a PDF in that email, so this is a good place to start. I picked what I thought were some cool layers that I thought might be most useful, and you'll see that they range from a variety of different things. So if you're interested in cities, countries, the states, so this would draw the boundaries of the states in, population density, school locations, power plants, all different types of different things. Healthcare facilities, there's global roads. So if you want to add road maps in there, there's ecoregions, USA parks, world temperatures, Wildfire hazard potential. That's the one we looked at before. Some of them are really cool science-based ones. Some are just fun ones. 1892 USA value map is actually a projection from an old 1892 USA map that has been over put on top of a digital map, which is kind of cool. Significant fossil sites, major ocean currents, so all kinds of different stuff. So this is a good cheat sheet to start with that I'm going to share with you. The other document that I'm going to share with you is this map tips document. This goes through everything that we just covered step by step. So how do you create a new map? How do you select a base map? How do you add or modify data from an online source? All this information in here. How do you add a layer and map? We haven't talked about 4 or 5. That's actually going to be in the next webinar this afternoon. We haven't talked about 6 specifically. I included some of these. They're a little bit more detailed, but they're in there. And then how do you share the map? So there's all kinds of different information that you're going to be given step by step on how to do some of this stuff. Some of it we've talked about, some of it we have not, but they're kind of next steps for those that have gotten this part and are ready to go. So you're going to get an email with those 2 documents, and then you're going to get an email, and then your certificate is going to be included in there. So that follow-up email is going to give you that information. So look for that stuff probably tomorrow. So if you got stuff out of this one, we are offering a number of webinars coming up as well. So if you have questions, what I would encourage you to do is you can start typing those in here. I'm going to be on for a few more minutes, and I'm just going to go over some stuff while people are talking a little or are typing in some questions potentially. The create interactive maps using your own data, that's going to be very similar to this one. It's going to start the same. A little bit briefer introduction on GIS because most people are repeating. Most people that are in the afternoon one were probably in this one as well. But if you're interested, you could still sign up for that one. That's going to be at 2 p.m. We're going to go into more detail on if you have data in your own spreadsheet, how do you get your spreadsheet into here to make data points appear? And then I just added 2 more webinars. One is going to be on Friday on citizen science. We're going to be looking at a program called iNaturalist and how your kids can go out in their neighborhood and take pictures of birds and plants and squirrels and lizards and whatever they have. They can add them to an online database and they can participate in citizen science, and how you can create citizen science projects within iNaturalist. So you could have your classroom contributing data to a project that you create. And then using live webcams is going to be the following Friday. We're going to be talking about all these cool little popular webcams, the eagle cams and owl cams, and how you can use those to study animal behavior. Another digital resource that your kids can do from home that you can be monitoring and doing. So if you're interested in registering for any of those, you just go to that website, bit.ly/AZGFD educator PD, and you'll see all the upcoming workshops. And those are 3 of my next webinars that are coming up. If you have any questions, again, I encourage you to type them in there. I'm going to remain for a few more minutes. If you don't get them in, you can feel free to email me. There is my email, eproctor@azgfd.gov, and I will try to respond to those. I am working from home, so that's the easiest way to get in touch with me. So great. I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes. I'm going to mute my microphone while I review some of the questions, and then once I get a question or two, I'll come back on and answer those. Or I'll type them if I feel that it's more relevant to a specific individual. But thank you. That is it. Feel free to log out. Please take the survey when you log out. It's 5 or 8 questions. It's very quick on what you thought of it. Allows us to continue doing some of these. So thank you, guys.